it's Rashida Geddes, your coach and mentor, and welcome to Business Talks, the place to find tips and insight on creating a business career and life in Montreal on your own terms. According to a study by the Institut du Nouveau Monde and Broadbent Institute, though most of the province realizes that there is a wealth gap and would prefer a more balanced sharing of the pie, the reality is that the richest 20% hold close to 70% of the wealth distribution here in Quebec. That percentage becomes non-existent when we break it down even further to account for the percentage of wealth within the Black community. The numbers don't lie, and it's become increasingly clear that the gap, which has become more of a gaping black hole, is not a problem worth solving for the richest 1% of the province. So what do? Do we sweep it under the rug and leave it for our children to solve, knowing full well most wealth creation is intergenerational? Or do we address the problem and try to find solutions that could change so many lives? My guest today, Frantz Saintellemy, has been on the front lines of change. His commitments to diversity in Quebec, his community, and leveraging social and economic resources are defining what it means to be a Black wealth creator in Quebec. Take a look. As a new face for Black wealth here in Quebec, Frantz Saintellemy is committed to nurturing the strategies that will help his community gain financial success. In 2012, he and his wife invested more than $4 million in the district of Saint-Michel and founded Groupe 3737, a business incubator dedicated to helping foster business creation and growth in Montreal. Creating wealth for his family and community, Frantz is showing with his actions and dollars that success comes to those willing to invest in making a difference. Welcome, Frantz, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to just talk about your journey to wealth creation and your journey as you were growing up. So what was that environment like? What were the conversations around wealth? And what beliefs do you think you were cemented in you from a young age that maybe you've kept or left behind along the way?
Actually, Rashida, wealth is a brand new word for me. Growing up, it was more about money. So it was more of a negative relationship with money because we were always striving to work for money and work to be able to provide either for food, for clothing, or to pay for everyday things. So it wasn't necessarily about wealth. It was more of a relationship, kind of a negative relationship with money. And
what beliefs were instilled in you at that point? I know that scarcity is something that comes to mind for a lot of people. What were the things that your parents maybe had taught you about money that really negatively affected maybe the way that you transitioned to developing this concept of wealth for yourself?
Yeah, the first thing for me was you needed to work. I mean, you have to, money just doesn't come by itself. You have to be able to work and to generate some income. The second thing is obviously living within your own means. So if you can do these two things well, work hard and live within your means, you probably have a better relationship. And so that was, for me, the two most important things. We come from a very big family. My father had 13 kids.
Wow.
And so, having a fighting spirit was essential because we were so big.
It was a survival mode, right? So you're just trying to get through, and I'm sure your parents were trying to get through the days, just making sure there was enough food on the table, making sure that everybody was fed and clothed and got to where they needed to go. So it was really not an emphasis on how we can save money and start building it, right?
Correct. It was more or less, survival of that moment. Whatever was needed, you did whatever you needed to do in order to get to that from point A to point B. It wasn't about a journey, it was more or less survival. And I mean survival because I wasn't born here, I was born in Haiti. And so in Haiti, it's even more an emphasis on survival. But when I first came here, I started understanding the relationship that people have with money. It's a little bit of a different relationship. And so that opened some doors for me in my mind, for sure.
And now moving into this stage of your life with this project that you're the honorary president of for the International Black Economic Forum, I want you to talk to me a little bit about where this idea came from to start this, this organization, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
You know, there are two main things. You know, Caroline Mibel, to her credit, she's the founder of the International Black Economic Forum. She approached me in 2011 and said, "Hey, I'm looking at starting this process of basically knowledge transfer." It wasn't necessarily around wealth. It was more or less, there's a ton of Black people from here or across the globe that are successful. And can we learn from these successes? And then can we transfer that knowledge to people here in Canada, in Montreal? And then, you know, transcend the cultural barriers, because, you know, what most people don't realize is amongst us Black folks, there are a lot of barriers.
Yes.
Whether it's French, Creole, or whether that be African, you know, so even Spanish. So we have, it's not a homogeneous culture. And so, but the learnings are applicable to all of them and all of these subcultures within the Black community. And so the idea was to bring experts who not just talk, but experts that could actually teach and transfer their knowledge and actually invite people to bring real ideas that they have, whether it's ideas about their professional journeys or ideas about a business, to come during the forum and really showcase their ideas or their views, and then have real experts and coaches that can guide them throughout the entire forum.
I love that you said it's a transfer of knowledge, because when we hear the word economic, right away we think money, we think finances, right? And we don't understand that there's capital, social capital, that's also equally important as financial capital. Whether you have more of one or the other, it's about leveraging what you do have to create what you need to have, right?
Right. Actually, give me knowledge and I create capital.
Exactly.
And so from my perspective, I'm a direct product of knowledge. So I didn't know what I know today, but I've successfully scaled and sold a business for several $100 million. So, you know, that's knowledge. And that knowledge, I can transfer that to somebody else. And maybe they can scale and sell a business of $1 billion. And so in that sense, from my perspective, knowledge comes first.
And how was it received, the idea to put this forum on, specifically here in Quebec? What challenges or opportunities did you guys have as a result of putting this idea on the marketplace?
Forget Quebec. I had Black people telling me, why would you want to be, you know, you want to portray the idea of secluding yourself as a community. And so I've had to actually explain to people that if you are white Anglophone or white Francophone, the issues that you're dealing with are different. These are two white people. And so amongst Blacks, the issues are even further. They're tenfold. And so we need to be able to be in an environment where people actually can look at each other and say, look, we're different, but we're living the same problems. And therefore, that first education had to be amongst the Black community. Outside of the Black community, it was fantastic. The response was phenomenal. I mean, you know, I have some very successful white Jewish friends or white French Francophones who are actually helping with the forum.
Yes.
So they love the idea of us organizing and actually taking this to another level to create wealth.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important what you're saying, because there are so many communities that are doing that already, right? We have the Jewish community, that's a great example. We have the Greek community, that's another great example of being able to leverage their resources as a community to help build everyone up.
Right.
And sometimes we don't understand why it's important for us to be able to, as a Black community, be able to leverage our own Black wealth in a way that allows us to empower everyone. Why do you think it's important for us to be able to talk about Black wealth?
You know, I mean, the first thing is, you know, we have some profound issues that other communities don't have. The first one is that, you know, we didn't start with a base. We don't have the European base that we can leverage, that commercial heritage. Our recent heritage wasn't a commercial one. And so therefore, we've got to start from ground -5, you know, so sub-basement.
Yes.
And so the reality is that, you know, what someone from the Jewish community can do today, or the Greek community versus a Black, the means are completely different. So we've had to actually start really at getting back to ground zero.
Yes.
And so these are very different. So we actually launched an incubator in Saint-Michel. And so we house roughly about 150 entrepreneurs these days. And so the idea is, of the 3737 is to cater to minorities, visible minorities. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you come from Algeria, you come from Northern Africa, or you come from Haiti, your challenges are different. If you're in your mid-30s, you have a little bit of expense, you probably have a child, you probably have responsibility for your family. So the idea of you spending a year without a salary, that's a no-brainer. That's no. And so for you, financing is your number one obstacle. And so you're not gonna be spending time developing a great business case. You're gonna be spending time trying to figure out what's the shortest path to financing. And so you cut yourself short. So you settle for less, right? When you're hungry, somebody tends 5,000, you're saying my project could be worth 5 million, but you need 5,000 just to get by.
Yes.
And so we've had to do what I call mental car washing, get that out of your system. Yes, you're hungry, but take another 2 steps forward and you'll get 50,000 or 100,000, not 5. And there's some institutional learning that needs to be transferred or that needs to be done. And so that's very particular to the Black minorities, that access to financing is a major obstacle.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that leads me to my next question. Access to finance, as you mentioned, is a huge challenge within our community. And sometimes we do undercut. We do undersell ourselves, and we do devalue what it is that we have to offer in the marketplace in pursuit of that almighty dollar, right? So why is it important for us to have these conversations about finances? And I know it sometimes can be a little, when people are talking about money, it can bring up so many different emotions, and it kind of leads us away from what we really need to be talking about. Why is it important for us to have these conversations about financing? And why do you think, what do you think some of the challenges are for people trying to create that now with their families?
The first thing is we don't have enough successful models to leverage, right? So if you look across Canada, you probably can count to one hand the number of really good successes that you can leverage. That's one thing. The second thing is whenever we talk about wealth creation, we talk about it in the most basic ways. We don't talk about it in the means of how do I scale? How do I really scale? So start from day one to evolve to, hey, I'm creating a platform that can be applicable to all the world, to the entire world. So we live in a numerical world, a digital world, where it's possible. So some of the most fundamental questions to get answered are more or less about, lack of visible successes that we can cherish, and that the kid that's in elementary school or in high school can say, hey, you know what, I can actually do better. And so our first priority is to leverage whatever platforms that we have today to build that first economical success. And so the forum will actually highlight some of these successful entrepreneurs from here and outside. A lot of people don't know that I actually did build a business, and I actually sold a business.
Very successfully too, right?
Not here in Canada, but nevertheless, I did, right? And so that can be transferred to someone else, and we need to celebrate these types of successes so that the next individual doesn't look at what I call creation of a business just to pay their bills. They're creating a business that can actually now give back to their environment and give back to their communities. And that's what the forum is all about.
And we're talking specifically about one community, the Black community. But why is talking about Black wealth important not only for our community, but also other communities, the province, the country, the world?
It's important because we are a large part of the society here that we live in. And so for me, I have my role to play. Having a thriving business in the East End, what did I do? We moved in the East End 5 years ago. It was an abandoned building. No one was paying any taxes. There was no ecosystem around it. Now we've got 300 people day in and day out that are coming into the building, creating an economic system, but also a platform that can be leveraged. So from my perspective, Black wealth is actually important and necessary for a thriving Quebec. The statistics are profound. 1 in 8 Black in the province of Quebec works for the government, directly or indirectly. And so if we want to scale and we want to create more wealth, we need to create more private sector jobs. And the main reason for these statistics is because we have great professors, great doctors, great lawyers, great accountants, but the biggest employer is the province of Quebec. So we need to change that balance. And when that happens, let's say it becomes not 80%, let's say 70%, well, that's a huge departure, and it's great wealth creation for the entire community. Not all businesses are Black. My electricity, I buy it from the government.
Yes.
My cable, my phones, so everybody wins.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that because everybody wins when each community is thriving and rising, because it means more access, more opportunities for them to spend their money, for them to hire people and things of that nature. I love this conversation. Where can people go to learn more about the International Black Economic Forum, to get up to date with what's happening, and to potentially join the movement at some point in their history? Right.
So you can join us on Facebook at the International Black Economic Forum, or you can do ibef.org, and you can, or just go online, Google International Black Economic Forum.
And Google you. I'm sure they're going to find a great wealth of information for them to be able to start inspiring them to do other things.
That's the unfortunate side of digital media, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Frantz, for being here with us today and for sharing your insights with our guest.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
My interview with Frantz left me with 2 takeaways. First, creating wealth is a process that requires us to shift the way we not only earn, save, and spend our dollars, but also the way we transfer knowledge in order to create the change we need. Second, creating wealth within our community is good for all communities. Those empowered spaces now have the ability to create the social and economic structures necessary to improve their lives and that of their families. I want to thank you for tuning in, and to Frantz for stopping by and sharing his insights with us. Are you ready to create a career, business, and life on your own terms? Are you looking to leverage your strengths so that you can transform your life? Visit RashidaGeddes.com to learn more about how I can help you and your business. Empower, mentor, lead, and never stop learning. Bye for now.